G'day everybody, Matt Ellis with you for another edition of the Cricket Library podcast, and today we get to hear the story of someone described as a cricketing journeyman, Shane Jurgensen. Born and raised in Queensland, cricket has taken him all around the world. We get to hear some of his exploits as a first-class cricketer, including a hat-trick against New South Wales. We'll hear about his coaching philosophy, the success of the World Test Championship winning New Zealand team, and what he's up to now, helping other people to get the best out of themselves. It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy the Shane Jurgensen story on the Cricket Library podcast. A very warm welcome to the Cricket Library podcast. Shane Jurgensen, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me. Fantastic. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, and we were just talking off air just before. We actually inadvertently would have crossed paths over 20 years ago in a club cricket environment, and great to reminisce some of those times from a long time ago. I'd like to take you back even further now, though, Shane. We love to know where people's passion for cricket started. You've been in cricket most of your life, and where did it all begin?
Yeah. It's taken me some great opportunities and some dark holes. Cricket. It's a game where, for me, I was basically brought up. It was surrounding me. Probably a boy that with undiagnosed ADHD, playing all different sports, AFL, basketball, all those. But in the end, came back to cricket. It was in my life. I was surrounded by cricket basically, and even to the point where, back then, that's a long time ago. Time flies, but what was that like? Born in 1976, so in the 80s and the 90s, players weren't paid to play cricket, so a lot of ex-players were insurance brokers or bank managers and stuff like that. So some of them would be coming around to my house at night and selling my parents' insurance policies or stuff like that. So it was forever cricket involved, and my father was involved in junior cricket as a coach. So it was always there, and then. Then it was my time to trying all those other sports. I just end up, just keeping on with cricket.
Any siblings to kind of help fuel the passion?
No, it was just purely at the cricket club all the time. So Sandgate Redcliffe, that was, I played for 3 states in Australia, which was a really cool experience. But every place that I played at, always played for the one club. So even in England, I only played for the one club in Horsham in Sussex. And Sandgate was my club in Brisbane. And, my father used to play when I was young. And so I'd be in the nets all the time. And after school down at the Brackenridge State School, bowling at a stump, it didn't stop. And I just, as I said, I tried other sports, which probably helped me stay athletic. Certainly basketball, but then I, managed to one Sunday afternoon do quite a serious injury, snapping my arm in half, basically. Trying to slam dunk a ball, and got dropped off at home by one of the guys that luckily had a car, and I've had a metal plate, and I've had that metal plate in my arm ever since when I slipped off the ring and landed on my wrist. And then I was more just devastated about that because Dennis Lee was coming the next week to do a thing, and I was invited in the Queensland youth setup of the cricket, obviously. And DK was coming in the next week. He had a huge part of my upbringing as a young fast bowler, and got me to move to Perth Cricket Club when I was 21, I think it was, when I moved over there initially. So, I was more devastated about that. But the look on my parents' face when they saw my arm in the hospital and the X-ray, it was like, it wasn't real great. And it was just a little bump in the road, really, in the end when I look back. But I was just surrounded by cricket, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned the great DK Lilly, one of the icons of the game. I was born in the 70s as well. I sort of caught the tail end of his career growing up watching on TV. But They were iconic figures, weren't they? The World Series Cup would be certainly a staple at my house throughout the summer. For you, what was it that got you to the next level? Like you mentioned, you're hanging around at Deagon at Sandgate Redcliffe Cricket Club, that kind of thing. When did you sort of first get noticed, and you sort of found yourself taking your game to a level where you thought first-class cricket could be a possibility for you?
Yeah, I think I was always I did well when I was younger, and I broke into the senior men's cricket scene with a lot of support and help. So I had some fantastic mentors when I look back, from my club coaches to people involved in the Queensland youth setup. And, like that time when I spoke about when I hurt my arm really bad, I woke up out of the operating theatre, and here was my two under-17 coaches.
Wow.
And stuff like that. So the support I used to get, and my mentor still today is Toot Byron. And, like stuff like that helped me. And I think, there was a lot of some harsh words at times, but also, when I was 16 years of age, in that same year, whatever year that was, I played first grade cricket for Sandgate, and I played first grade basketball. And then for Maine Tigers, I think they're called. Yeah, so the ex-Brisbane Bullets basketball team, the players that weren't in the first five, they used to play. So here I was playing against them and going to cricket training after it or something like that. So, So, but I think for me, a huge thing for me was my height. So I was very tall. I grew, I think it was something ridiculous one year when I was 14, like maybe 4 to 5 inches, and then I actually had a stress fracture when I was 14. It was was knock-kneed and went from size 7 to size 11 shoe in 6 months, something stupid. And because of that, I got a stress fracture when I was 14.
Wow.
And then with a lot of help from a great physio and other people, I got back on the park pretty quickly. And then, and because of my height, I was just able to, I don't maybe dominate because of my height, and then all of a sudden everyone caught up with me. So I went to my first national titles and did okay in under-17s for Queensland down in Hobart, and then each year after that it got harder and harder. But I knew that I wanted to play for Australia, and I was willing to do anything for it. So I was really keen to. I went to the Cricket Academy in 1994 with an amazing cast of players that were there, way better than me. Andrew Simon, Shane Lee, Rob Baker. There was an amazing crew. Ryan Campbell.
Yeah.
Brett Lee would come in as an associate player, like associate scholar they used to call it. So an amazing crew of players, and I learnt so much from them. Ian Harvey was another one. Some seriously naturally talented players, and I think I got a real wake-up call there. I was not ready to go to the Cricket Academy at 17. I just literally straight out of school. I wasn't ready for it. I didn't know what I had to do. But then after that, and then all of a sudden, when that was sort of that 17, 18 period, I went back home. I ended up moving out of home, and I really learnt really quickly that I had to do the extras, because all of a sudden I wasn't getting picked for higher honours in Queensland, but they had a ridiculous talented players at the Queensland Bulls at the time back then. I had that, and through the help of Dennis Lilly, I had to make the move and sacrifice, and sold my $2,700. Sold my first car, the Ford Laser. The Ford Laser with pink and green stripes up the side. I don't know what I was doing with that one, but sold that, and then moved across to Perth, and had some things happen to me. I remember the car got broken into in the second week I was there, and things like you just do, don't you? I was so lucky to get a great job that had a car, and I would look funny in it, a Daihatsu Charade, and I used to have to put my cricket bag in the front seat. because it wasn't big enough to put my bag in the back. So, but I think, that was sort of once I sort of got the knockbacks and the no's and you're not selected for this, I'm sorry, you put on weight or you're not bowling as well as you have been. And all of a sudden there was that period of around that 18, 19 was like, ooh, okay. All of a sudden, the person that would probably get picked in most teams wasn't, and that was a real shock to me. And I had to make a shift really quickly. And it was just through hard times, not hard times in terms of life, but hard times in terms of cricket decisions. What my dreams and what I want to do as a child, I had to make a shift real quickly. And that was probably the start of, sometimes in the paper I've been called the Journeyman, and that's where it started when I first moved to Perth.
Yeah, that term, the Journeyman, you've played in a lot of places, and I guess one of the real assets to that is the learning that you pick up along the way. You take yourself out of your own comfort zone in Queensland. You've got your family, your friends, your support networks there, and you go to a new state. You don't do that on the back of a reputation where people don't really know what to expect from you. You've got to kind of put your own stamp on things. What have been some of the key learnings for you from moving to Perth, moving to Tasmania, coming back home, in a playing perspective and as a human being?
Oh yeah, I learned very quickly that I had to grow up and you have a lot of personal responsibility on yourself, because you don't have maybe people within the squad when you first move to a new place, and you need to, sort of jump in, join in, or take responsibility for your own actions. Things for me, like in Perth, I was working from 8 to 4, had a very flexible job selling glass and aluminium products and the builders when they had on new building sites. So I was mixing that, and then getting to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. Had a great example of that. The coach was actually doing a workout at the time, Wayne Clark.
Yeah.
I wasn't actually doing it in front of him, because he was doing his own thing. He'd finished just as I arrived or something like that. But it was more to gain that experience of what I had to do to make it. And I think just being relentless in my pursuit to do that. And I think what I learned really quickly, all those the clubs that I played for, and also the state's domestic teams I played with. I mean, the dressing room in Western Australia was ridiculous. When I was there, they won the Sheffield Shield, and was lucky to, as a squad player, to see them do it.
Yeah.
And that was my teammate at the club level was also Adam Gilchrist, and to see him with the drums, I think he had the drumsticks after the Shield final, banging on something, they're just what they celebrated as a team in Western Australia. You learn about life in Western Australia was certainly different to life in Brisbane. The people, the place, the weather. You learn, you see some amazing behaviours, maybe some not so good behaviours, and you sort of become, you see the model of behaviour that you want to become and what you want to be. And I think that's certainly, that, and then moving to Tassie, it was a whole new environment there, a lot colder, And I remember in a warm-up game, I got invited to play in this trial game. I remember the ball popped off a length off Ben Target. I still remember, and it smacked me on into the thumb. And it was like my first ever bat over there. I'd never experienced a wicket that was popping like that in September.
Yeah.
And, it bruised straight away. And I was like, well, this is a whole new ball game. And everywhere I went, you were the target. So you arrived into a new environment. It's like, oh, who's this guy? Let's take him down, blah, blah. And, you learned really quickly that you had to be quite, I think I mentioned before, resilient. And how can you, learn from people in there as well and observe, but also, as I said, be a really good role model, I suppose, for behaviours to try and get yourself to that next level. And you've got to make as many friends as you can. And I certainly had some really strong relationships in those places. But you also, as a person who moved around a bit, you sort of, because you moved around, you don't have long-term relationships.
Yeah.
with teammates, and I think that's actually been if I was to say that might have been a negative in the long run. I've got to meet so many people, but when you move, you miss that connection with people, and I think that certainly has happened in times throughout my whole life.
Yeah, and from a personal satisfaction point of view, to sort of go full circle and then break back into that Queensland squad back in 03-04. What did that mean to you to sort of prove that you could do it?
Yeah, well, Queensland, in a lot of ways I wanted to play for Australia, but I meant to say a lot of ways I probably wanted to play more for Queensland than I did Australia. And it was very quite, when I moved home, I had a change of life and met my wife and kids, and they're amazing and they've helped me so much along the way. I became a junior cricket club president and did that for 5 years. And I think, to that was all together with when I first moved back to Queensland, I just wanted to be happy. I wasn't happy in Tassie in my last summer there for a number of different reasons, and some of it wasn't my fault and other reasons. And I just decided to go home for my own mental health, I suppose, and to be with family. And I was just literally, I had a fantastic first club game, and I think I took 7 for and a hat trick against South, I think it was. And I don't know how I remember that. But anyway, so the next minute I got a phone call. I think there was an Australian tour to India. There was a whole pile of injuries in the Queensland Bulls team. And then all of a sudden I played the first 3 games of that season in Sheffield Shield cricket, took 13 wickets, I think. And I ended up being contracted for 4 years. I didn't play much. I was probably used as an experienced bowler as backup, but there was some fantastic players, and every net session was a battle. And it was great to be part of that, and that quality of bowl that was running around there from, Shane Watson moved back there, Mitchell Johnson, Joe Dawes, Ashley Noffke, Andrew Bickle, Michael Kasovich. I think Carl Rackerman was still playing when I first moved back. And so, I think, some phenomenal cricketers, and, the experiences I've got being in those battles and those net sessions was really cool.
Yeah, Adam Dale was on the podcast last year, and he mentioned the intensity of some of those net sessions up there at Queensland. I reckon from a batter's point of view, surviving against that Queensland, if you could survive that Queensland bowling attack back in the day, you'd be feeling pretty confident you were going to score some runs in the Sheffield Shield, because they were just A-lister after A-lister.
Yeah, and that was certainly one very high-quality bowler that I missed, because Adam was definitely around during those times and, would swing it both ways, extremely accurate. He was amazing. And, I remember one session like being bounced. I think it was Ben Edmondson, gave me a good working over, and I didn't know. Yeah, but even then, you do it so many times that I was like, you just, I batted 9, 10, 11, so it wasn't that much fun. And I remember, the list of the training session would come up where you're batting, and then look over, like, where's Mitchell Johnson? Like, I'm going in that net. So I was like, but who could pad up first and get away from that net? So that was certainly my theory, was get over there. I don't want to go home with a broken forearm. So it was some amazing, and that's certainly, that intensity of those type of sessions has certainly put me in a really strong position in my coaching career, and things from those experiences and what I've done recently in the last sort of 10 to 15 years coaching internationally.
Yeah, I want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned your hat trick against South's round 1 Brisbane Premier Cricket. Want to ask you about your hat trick at first class level. I think you were only the second person to get a hat trick for Tasmania in the Sheffield Shield, and people will know 2 of the 3 names very well: Michael Clark, Vaughan Williams, and Brad Haddon. Vaughan, and this is with all due respect to Vaughan Williams, only played that one Shield game, but Clark and Haddon in a hat trick.
Yeah.
How good's life in that scenario?
It was a fluke. It was a fluke. was in the middle of an uphill into the wind spell. That one, I do remember a lot of stories after it, and some people put extra mayo on it, no doubt. But
yeah,
probably I do sometimes. But I do remember it was a Friday afternoon. I feel like it was a Friday afternoon. It was the old business luncheons were on, and heard stories of glasses being broken and stuff like this in excitement, because it was a really clear pathway to the final for us. We had a horrible start to the season at Tassie, and then we literally had to win every game or win, 4 out of 5, whatever it was, to even have a chance. So, and then all of a sudden, we were in with a chance, and we won that last game, and I got a few wickets and the hat trick, and I think there's been 2 Shanes, I think, get first class hat tricks at the Bellerive Oval. One was me, and then Shane Bond playing as a one day for New Zealand. I think so. Him and I, having coached him and worked with him over here, so we sort of joke about that a bit. But it was a pretty cool experience, that was, no doubt. And it was a long time ago now,
though. and not long after 11 wickets in a Shield final against your home state. How did you approach playing against Queensland?
Oh, I was freaking out, no doubt. The intensity of that final was unbelievable. Like, I mean, you things like what's been, and what I mean by intensity, how can I describe intensity? It's just the shift in atmosphere.
Yeah.
There's a bit riding on it, and all of a sudden there's this sharper focus, sharper edge, a desperation to create history, I suppose, and I think for both teams, and to be a part of something that you can always remember. And there's no doubt I still remember certain aspects of it. I had to bowl a lot of overs because we had a few injuries. It was the back end of the season, and I think Queensland had a star team, and a lot of their test players were available. Kastrovic was playing. I think Bickle was playing. I'm not too sure. Dawes, Nothke, they were really strong, and and I think playing against Queensland, it was a high, a bit on it for me. Always when my experiences of players I've coached, and also myself playing against your own home state, you always want to do well and prove something for whatever reason, which is silly now when I look back. You think that, and I'm trying to say that to players sometimes. It's like you almost want them to relax it even less, more and just relax and put the pressure off themselves. But as a coach, and you don't need to prove anything to anyone, because everyone's sort of in it for themselves in a lot of ways, not in a selfish way, but they're more worried about themselves and their journey as either an individual or as a cricket team.
Yeah.
And I think, but for me, it was a really special few days to do that. But it's amazing. You felt better, obviously, after that game, in the New South Wales game, because we won that game and you contributed, and I contributed to the Sheffield Shield final, but we got pumped and lost by over 250 runs, I think. So you sort of didn't really feel the same. And I think that just also means that, you try to make the best contributions you can for your team. And that's, in the end, that's what matters. It's nice for you to get your personal accolades, but I think that's, for me, I've always been a person that would like to contribute to the team's success.
Yeah, absolutely. Cricket's one of those funny games like that. Personally, I'd take a duck in a grand final with a W next to the team's name over 100 in a losing cause, so to speak. But transitioning into coaching, when did you think that could be the next thing? Are you thinking about that while you're still playing?
Definitely. I was coaching very young. I was 21, I think, when I first could say that I was a coach. My first season in Horsham and Sussex and I was the coach of the team at 21, and
wow.
Used to run training sessions and I helped coach the first ever women's team. I think the next year that I went, so I coached them on a Friday afternoon and ran sessions with the juniors and coached at camp. So yeah, it started pretty early and was also to supplement my income as a poor cricketer. Supplement the income, but I also think I really enjoyed it, and it was something that I realised pretty early that I had a knack of being able to interpret to people, or get across to people a drill or a skill and how to execute it, and also being able to connect with people. I don't know why, it's just always seemed to happen to have that sort of, and it just seemed to happen. And there was a period of time where I didn't coach for a couple of years just because I was just too busy with. There was probably 1 year in Tassie where I played all of the seasons, but before and after that, and then I think where it all sort of shifted was when I moved back to Queensland after my Tasmanian stint. I became a junior cricket club president. I did that for 5 years, and parents would come up to me and go, "Oh, you're a Queensland ball cricketer." I was like, "Yeah." And then they'd say, "Can you coach my son?" And then it just grew. So I started my own business in 2003, 2004, and that was my foundation. I coached, kids on Friday afternoon, kids cricket. That was, why did I do that? Anywhere from 5 to 6 year olds coming along running a mutt for an hour. That was, to, young people wanting to develop their cricket with private coaching. I had 5 private schools in Brisbane, and I was running a junior development program, and I was also coaching. So I think at the back end of my career, once I realised I was probably done at first class cricket at 30, 31, and because there were so many good cricketers at Queensland, I couldn't break it. I decided to move on quickly into coaching and used my own cricket as a way to learn things as well. So that certainly helped me, even to the point where I actually bowled off spin in a first class game. And I took a wicket, a first grade game, I should say, not first class. For Sanga, I took 1 wicket, which would have frightened everyone. But so learning to do spin, and I think that as I said, that was my foundation, was having that business. And then the GFC hit 2007, 2008, and then I had to make a shift into the high performance. For sustained income for my family, I had to move into high performance coaching. That's when I moved, into over to New Zealand originally.
Yeah, and you've coached in a lot of places. You mentioned going to New Zealand, 2008. You're there as a bowling coach. You have time in Bangladesh, Fiji, Scotland, and then back to New Zealand. How over time has your philosophy as a coach evolved? How has the Shane Jurgensen method changed from the days of running the kids around on a Friday afternoon to taking a team, being a part of a team that won the World Test Championship?
Yeah, I think for me, there was something that was always there, but of what I do now, the way that I coach now. But I think during that period of having my business and learning and dealing with so many different people, for you to have an impact, it was definitely more of a technical side of the fence. So, like how to hit a ball better, how to throw a ball better, bowl a ball better. It was the execution of the skill, trying to get that person better than what they were when they turned up. And then it sort of, moved into the high performance space, where all of a sudden you're dealing with an individual who has got those skills. And then I realized really quickly that I had to basically create a relationship with this person. And that was then, one of the things that was said about me as a coach is, from a player, who's, one of the best things about Jurgo is he actually gives a shit. Yeah. And sorry for swearing, but I learnt really quickly that I had to have genuine relationships with people and care about them as people as well as individuals. And I think, my philosophy now is to service all through empathy and love, and to help them be the best version of themselves today. And that's pretty much it, and that's what I do now. And then whether it's with the team or with a player that I'm working with, it's realizing that person has a story to tell, they have a background. And I think being in all those different parts of the world, being in Bangladesh, Fiji, Scotland, had to be creative. You're in a different environment. It was a culture shock for me, and appreciating people's backgrounds, bureaucracy and budgets and things like that. So yeah, it certainly changed over time, and now back in New Zealand for the last 8 years, and head coach, moved back into head coaching after being with the Black Caps for 8 years, and then having the stint that we had during my time with the Black Caps, the white ball successes and the frustrations and the disappointments, but making numerous finals and semi-finals, and then the World Test Championship was just something that was in a difficult time for the world, but what an amazing experience leading up to that and making the final, and it was just huge. And I've got such amazing video footage on my iPad from those times, and to look back every now and then, I look back at them and have a look, not often, but just sometimes, and you see all the little things that used to happen within the change room of the New Zealand team. And I always said at the end, the New Zealand cricket team's been playing for, so I think it was 1923 or something was the first test, and they had a break till the next one or something like that. So I was involved with the New Zealand team for nearly 100 years, or numerous tests, and I was part of it for 10 years of those 100 years. So to be a part of that as a bowling coach was, such a special experience for me, and a real privilege to be a part of that.
And what do you see that set that group apart? What are the kind of key ingredients that go towards creating that kind of culture where you can bounce back from the setbacks of not hit a boundary count back in a World Cup final to going on and achieving that result, that first ever World Test Championship as a group? What kind of group does that have to be?
I think if people were to spend time with people in New Zealand and the appreciation of the things that have to go in behind the scenes. So, for example, there isn't the budget, the money, the resources. It comes down to people and people's pure effort. And even today, I spent time with the Bay of Plenty Waikato Magic netball team and the financial things that they're going through, but more importantly, for the players, it covers both sides of the island in a certain section, and they've got players from the far north, the western side of New Zealand, and the eastern side of New Zealand, and they all come together and train. And it's just things like that. It's just the sheer effort and willpower, and that's your grounding. And they're people that are very grounded, and they come together, and that's what happened with the New Zealand team during that period. The setbacks, the near misses, but they just crack on and they stay level. And it was certainly something, being Australian, that I had to learn quickly here. And it did take me a long time, because you want to win, but there's actually a journey here. And this was the journey of that New Zealand cricket team in that time, and it'll still continue now. And, there was a group of players that were a very resilient batting lineup, talented, relentless bowling attack that would give you nothing. And it was really a perfect storm of talent at the time. I think there was such a crew of players in that team that were in that golden period of a player, when they're sort of that 26 to 32,
Yeah.
depending on how long you've been playing for and your experiences and your physical peak and your skill all come into one. And that's what happened. And we knew the pathway to the final. We had to just keep winning, and the confidence just kept growing with every win. It was amazing to be a part of. And, you know, you got players and really good bunch, as I said, really good bunch of people with a lot of respect and very grounded, and staff that were, you know, like we only had 5 support staff full time.
Mm.
I mean, you look at the England team; they got up to 15 when I first saw them. Australia might be either side of 10 or maybe 12. You know, it's like, you know, you just had 5 people doing the extra work. Like Kane Williamson and I had we live in the same area. We're on the flight once together, and you know, and one of the things that he said, and because it did get tiring, I realise now the effort you had to go into, the commitment you had to all the time, and that's sometimes the sacrifice of your own family to do it. And you know, one of the things that Kane said to me, you know, when you join this team, what's on your job description is the minimum that you do, and that is, there are so many meetings and things that go on behind the scenes. And one of the great things that I had the privilege to do in my last year of being with the New Zealand Black Caps was I used to present present the caps before every test match, and I would make contact with a person that would come in and present the caps, or make up a video because of COVID, or you know, and present the caps. And those meetings before a test match were so special. And I think that really brought all those meetings and the stuff like that, brought that group together, and players and staff were just go above and beyond, you know, to try and get, you know, the environment right, and then take that onto the field.
Yeah. And for you, you have opportunities to step in as head coach for Gary a number of times. Is there a mindset shift for you? You're working with the fast bowlers day to day in your normal role. How did you approach that change from bowling coach to head coach?
Yeah, great question. You're responsible initially, straight away. You're responsible for so many more things. So I had to really shift to the game plan, our structure, and that was already in place, but I had to ensure that was followed through on, the process that the team had, the blueprint in 50 over cricket, 20 over cricket, red ball cricket. And my time with the team was mainly white ball cricket, and that was cool. Like, a couple of times I had to take over when we just had some disappointing losses, and we were able to turn it around. And I think that was, you know, it was just trying to create that foundation of what we were built on. And I just had to just carry on the work that everyone had done before me, and that was my role, to step up in that. So I was, you know, you're designing training sessions, you're looking at the whole team, you're making sure that the timings of everything is right. What are we doing when we arrive to the ground for trainings, and planning that training session? What do we want to focus on? Are we doing fielding? No, we're not. You got to consult and collaborate with so many other people. And your strength and conditioning coach, we don't want to load them up too much. Things like the field's wet. We probably should pull back on the fielding. It's a bit too heavy. And little things like that. You're planning, sort of, you have a plan, but you prepare that the plan will not work. And I had a lot of practice around that in Bangladesh. I tell you, you had the greatest plan in the world for that training session, and you would turn up, and someone would come over and go, the groundsman, sorry, coach, wicket got wet last night, sprinkler, or, you know, something like that. It would just blow the whole thing out of, just like, okay, plan B. And that's sort of really what I had to learn quickly from those times, and transfer it into being a head coach, and to simply try to be as calm as you can for everyone, because that's all I try to do. Inside, I'm absolutely not calm during games, and there's a lot of cups of tea or coffee, but a lot of moving around. I can't sit still for long, and it's like, oh, okay, better just try and calm the nerves, have a bit of a laugh to sort of help, sort of just calm everything down. And and that was some great times. Like I remember things like some of the players would really endorse that as well. And I remember so many times things like Trent Bolt and Tim Southey, one test match we were losing a few wickets, and instead of having slips practice in the changing room, next minute they'd come up to the viewing room and burst in and go, what's going on out there? What's going on? And they would like, what's going on? We've forgotten how to bat or something, and they would say stuff like that. And you would never believe what would be said. Going from sitting in the dressing room, having coffee and talking about life, or having slips practice in the dressing room, to all of a sudden coming out and going, come on, what's going on out there? We've forgotten how to bat. And it would just calm everything down. And I think that's what I really learned in that type of role, is that, I think laughter can really help just diffuse a situation and calm the brain. And that's certainly something that I've learned over the time. And I do use that in my coaching to calm players down around me if I can.
Yeah. It sounds like a really positive environment to be around, and people not when you can learn not to take yourself too seriously as well. Just
definitely, yeah.
Just helps everyone put their guard down and just enjoy being themselves. Now, that's something, a new project of yours. I'm really interested to hear more about how you're evolving yourself as a coach now, and the new project you're working on. Tell us about what you're doing and how you're hoping to use what you've learned over many years to help other people.
Yeah, well, I think it's two things. One, I'm now head coach of the Wellington Firebirds, which I've really enjoyed, and had a successful sort of first season with them post World Cup. I had 2 days at home, and then I joined them, and we were able to win the Sheffield Shield equivalent, the Plunket Shield, it's called here in New Zealand. That was a really cool experience, and so that's my main role now. But I've sort of come full circle in my business. So from where it started, and now, but basically the goal is to help and support people, anyone of any level, to simply get the knowledge that they think they need to become a better cricketer, a better person, and just stop the injuries that I had when I was a young player. So you're a young fast bowler. You can email me, you can contact me, send me a video. I'm trying to keep it as very cost efficient as possible. But for me, the goal is to not just look at a bowling action and then send people on their way. It's more about, here's the bowling action, here's some consultation on what I think the improvements you need to make. Here is a bowling load program for the next 3 to 4 weeks, and make sure people are bowling safely and they're looking after their bodies. Because what I went through as a cricketer is also one of the reasons I became a coach, because there was no bowling coaches around when I was playing until, no, there wasn't really. There was a coach and maybe an assistant coach, but specialist bowling coaching wasn't around, and that's where I learned a lot of my own stuff and learned from other great bowlers, but also developed my own sort of programs and how to support people. And that's the role of action plan cricket, is to provide that opportunity for people to learn more about what people do at the international level, and how does that resonate with what I can do as a 17-year-old. What can I, female or male, and how can I go through those steps to become a better cricketer and do it safely, injury-free, and develop as quickly as I can. And so seeing into the future of what you can achieve, and just have a bit of a plan for people. So that's the goal of what I'm doing. I'm starting very small, but maybe in time it might be something that people find very valuable.
Yeah, it sounds like a very valuable tool for people that want to get the best out of themselves. And I love that empathy is one of your values, and one of the things that you embody in the way you work as a coach. And I think that that helping people to be the best version of who they can be is a very valuable, very very valuable goal to have in what you're doing.
For me, I don't talk about winning a lot. The goal is always to win, but more importantly, the goal is to compete and to individually and as a collective, we've got our process. As a person, I'm trying to be the best version of myself because everyone has bad days. The car has broken down, the tire has popped, or I've had no sleep that night. And that's sort of evolved a lot during like my time with New Zealand. Is I met Trent Bolt in 2008 in July, and I thought he was a batter, and lo and behold, next thing he's running in, bowling left arm, pretty slippery outswingers, and had a great. There was an emerging players tournament, and now he's married, 3 beautiful boys, and he lives literally a 5-minute drive from where I am in Omokoroa in Tauranga, New Zealand. So I've been to understand where people come from and their story, as I said, and it's just fascinating working with people and seeing their growth, and you just never know where you might end up. And I've really enjoyed that part of my journey as a coach, and I've been very lucky to have done what have been able to do for so long, and hopefully I can keep doing it for a long time to come.
Yeah, let's definitely hope so. And now, before we let you go, this is our hardest hitting question. We saved the best to last. We're lot of cricket nuffies listen to this podcast, and we've all got our own little dream net session of who we'd love to invite to the nets. And so we love to ask you, Shane Jurgensen. You've got a clean slate. It's up to you. You've got to pick 3 people. Who are you going to hang out with at the nets? Dream net session.
3, and then we're talking cricketers.
Oh no, it could be anyone. We've had, I think Nathan Horrocks invited The Rock. Who else? Peter George invited Johnny Howard. So the slate is clean. It's up to you to decide, and we just put it out there into the world, and we just say, let's see who you got.
Well, I think I was sort of leaning towards the cricket people in terms of being a what I do and loving the intensity of a Dale Steyn versus.
Oh, don't worry, we've had plenty of those. Plenty of those.
But the one that I would like on the side, just chipping away, creating some comedy, would have to be Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell, yes.
I think seeing him and the way that he operates, and I think what he did that time a few years ago when he played for 5 Major League Baseball teams in one day in the spring, I think someone like him would be quite handy to have around to basically make a bit of comedy out of this weird game that we all love called cricket.
Yeah, I like that. You got 2 others you can invite.
Well, I think Celeste Barber.
Who's that? Sorry,
Celeste Barber. She's another. Yeah, and Michael Jordan. I don't know. I'm running out of names. I love someone of a different sport come along and critique cricket as well. So I'll put Michael Jordan in there, and so Celeste Barber, Will Ferrell, Michael Jordan.
Oh, that is outstanding. Well, Jurgo, I've thoroughly enjoyed catching up with you and really love your passion for people and your desire to help people be better. And thank you for sharing so honestly with us, and we wish you all the best with the next phase of your career.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for your time. Great questions, mate. Thank you.
A massive thanks to Shane Jurgensen for joining us on this edition of the Cricket Library podcast. And a massive thanks to you, our loyal listeners who tune in each and every time we release a new show. It's wonderful to have your company, and a very warm welcome to all of our new listeners as well. If you enjoyed that chat with Jurgo, no doubt you'll enjoy some of the other chats that we have in the back catalogue. Hit the subscribe button. Go back and have a look at what you've missed out on, and make sure you are ready for when the next episode will drop. I'm sure there are plenty more great stories coming your way as the Cricket Library podcast continues to grow. This has been Matt Ellis once again. Thank you for your company. Bye for now.